Hi, everyone. So today we're going to talk about innovation and modernization, two big words. And so I hope to give a little bit of clarity and color around each of them and what I think they might mean today. Modernization typically means you have an existing traditional IT infrastructure, both physical hardware, local servers, local data centers, local applications. In many cases, they're pretty big monolithic applications. You have a pretty heavy UI framework, and you have a heavy middle tier talking to, a database backend, pretty static, and you want to get to the new model of doing software development. And I'll touch on that a little bit later. Then you have innovation. And so what does that mean, right? How do you get to use the latest and greatest technologies that exist today? One thing to keep in mind with innovation today is that a lot of cloud vendors and a lot of software developers and software application vendors do everything cloud first. So in order for a company to make use of innovations in software development and new services, it typically means that you will have to talk to something that lives in a cloud environment. And so you have to kind of prepare yourselves for that. I think that in general, when we talk innovation, that will become more and more an issue. So some of our customers are very traditional. Like I said, everything runs locally in a local data center. You want to modernize, to build sort of new applications and follow the new development model. But when you want to innovate, you do have to keep in mind that a number of services will be in the modern cloud-based environment. But we have somewhat of a solution for you for that anyway, even if you don't want to get outside of your data center. So those are the two big words and the two things that I want to describe a little bit. When it comes to modernization, so a number of things. Today, you hear cloud native, you hear microservice, Docker, containers, Kubernetes, all these words coming up. And on the one hand, people say, well, if you want to create a new application, if you want to do modern apps, you have to be all these things. You have to be cloud native, you have to be using Kubernetes, you have to be using Docker and so forth. And while those tools are very useful and in general, a good recommendation, it's not really required to do so. It's not required for a modern app to depend on all these pieces. And what I mean by that is the following. So microservices, basically at a high level, what it means is you take something that typically is a big monolithic thing, and you break it down into smaller, more manageable components, and those will become your software services. Sometimes that goes way too far and people have way too many little things that talk to each other, and that's not good either. You can go way far with microservices. You have to find a middle ground. You have to make sure that the breakdown of the application is something that's based on a decent size of work. But it's a good idea and it's a good model of doing software development for sure. So that's one thing. The second part is that when you do this work where you break down your application into smaller components, you want to make sure that the way they communicate is done in a relatively standard way, right? So you create endpoints for each of these services. You basically use JSON as a way to transmit data back and forth. And one of the advantages you have here is that you can create a UI in front of it. You can change that UI at any point in time. You can have multiple different ways of a front end that talks to this. You can have command line tools. You have other applications that talk to your services and so forth. So it gives you a lot more flexibility. The traditional IT model was very much designed around monolithic environments, and you were kind of stuck. It did what it did and nothing else. When you look at one of the advantages that cloud native brings is the concept of REST APIs and endpoints. And so the ability for your application to be talked to by other applications, and it opens it up, right? That's one of the bigger interesting premises. Whether you use Docker or Kubernetes or not, that's sort of secondary. The really primary thing is to think about the way you can talk to your application, right? And endpoints where you have APIs and communicate that way is certainly a very important aspect of what needs to happen. Then the second part is that user interfaces are ever changing, right? There's always the framework of the day, right? One day people love React and JavaScript. Tomorrow it will be some other language. So by having a model of application development where you separate the user interface that runs on the desktop oftentimes, then you have a lot more flexibility in the future and you're more nimble. When you have one specific way of doing communication, that's not that easy. So that's part of modernization. So basically saying, I have something that's probably monolithic, you break it down into smaller pieces, or if you write a new application, you start that way and you have communication through endpoints, and you'll be good in that sense. So then secondly, what we've been working on from the Oracle side is how can we help those pieces work really well for you? So we have Oracle Cloud, right? And so with Oracle Cloud, we provide container services with OKE, we provide database services, we provide Java services, and so forth. And so if you don't want to do the management pieces and all you want to do is write an app that runs in cloud, works really well for us. You have an easy platform, it's all well managed, backed up, secure, and so forth. One of the advantages we have and that we have at Oracle is that we provide all this stuff also on premises. Right. So if you want to run your database, you can do that. If you want to run Java, you can do that. You don't need to use the service. You can use the same, basically the same binaries and the same software that we use within our cloud. You can pretty much deploy on premises as well. If you want to have the cloud model in your data center on your floor, we provide things like Cloud at Customer, dedicated regions, Exadata Cloud at Customer gives you the full Oracle Cloud database in your own data center and so forth. So we give you these options of you're a more traditional one data locally, no problem. You want to do new software development locally, no problem. We give you the same tools that we use. And we feel that's a competitive advantage compared to other cloud vendors. Most of the time, a cloud vendor has a service. The service is built on software things that are unique to what they have internally. And so it's a black box. It's a good service, but the only place to use it is in the particular cloud vendor's environment. And it's the same for databases as well as development frameworks and everything else. So you're kind of locked in if you go in a model like that. And our customers have been very clear. Many of you have been very clear over the years that you're afraid of lock-in. There's the intent or the idea that cloud vendors provide you with no choice if you go all the way to one vendor and you want to have more control. And so we're very aware of that. So those are sort of some of the main highlights of what we have been working on. Then another part of modernization and certainly innovation is machine learning. And so many of you have I'm sure talked about the use of machine learning within your companies locally or what the benefits can be from a cloud vendor point of view. And one thing to keep in mind is that machine learning only really works when you have lots of data, right? And one of the advantages for us being a cloud vendor is that we have lots of data from deployments, from how the systems work. So we can do anomaly detection. We can look at security at a larger scale. We can discover patterns based on much larger volumes of data, so we can fine-tune the algorithms and train the models much better. And so if you want to incorporate machine learning into your future application development, then the cloud model will certainly be of big help to you, or the ability for doing things at a large scale where the cloud vendor can give you some of these options. Now, again, when you have a dedicated region at customer, or we bring you Exadata Cloud at Customer again as well, then a lot of the things that we've learned in OCI in that model, we will be able to bring to your data center, specific to these pieces, but we will be able to, or are able to do that today as well. And so I think that from a machine learning point of view, I think that lots of customers seem to think that you can do this at small scale as well. And that's definitely not something that we've seen. So machine learning typically expects something provided by a vendor, and where the learning has been done before the software gets shipped, and work with a cloud vendor where these services offered at a larger scale. Those are sort of the main things in the context of machine learning that we've seen. But again, with part of our mission has been how can we take all that learning and provide it to customers in a somewhat of a hybrid model as well. And again, Exadata Cloud at Customer and dedicated regions are one very good way for us to bring that sort of technology into your data centers if you really want that. But fundamentally, how we see innovation is you want really maximum amount of choice. So you decide where you want to deploy, you decide how you pay for that deployment, whether you have a subscription model or not, and we give you the options. We give you machine learning. So we have all of that integrated. All the work we do is integrated with machine learning. And we also give a good range of modern application development environments and tools. So we have Oracle Jet as a front end for user interface building. We use that in Oracle Fusion applications. So our own application development has a user interface that's built completely on Oracle Jet. It's a very good toolkit that has been focusing on business applications. So the way the widgets are designed, the way the interaction with the application works is very much designed around business applications. And so it's a really great toolkit that we make available for our own internal developers, but at the same time, as with pretty much everything we do, we also make it available for customers. Then the second layer down, of course, is Java and making sure that we provide a very good Java runtime for on-premises development. We have GraalVM, which allows you to do native compilation of your Java program into a binary. It gives you really fast startup and a really small environment to run in. Whether you containerize that or not is, again, secondary. We give you a really good Java runtime environment. But if you want to use other tools, of course, whether it's Python or Node or Ruby or R, we make sure that our applications and our databases work really well with those tools as well. Then machine learning, again, we have integrated that. Oracle Autonomous Database it relies heavily on machine learning. Autonomous Linux relies on machine learning. MySQL HeatWave Autopilot relies on machine learning. So there's been a lot of ways that we use it to enable anomaly detection, deal with preventative and proactive maintenance of the software, and also really help us with detecting problems before a normal person would be able to see that something happens. The software monitors the system constantly, and it would slowly seize a pattern that doesn't look normal. It will detect it really quickly and provide us with the alerting that works really well. And we make that then available for the customers, of course, as well in the service. Now, lastly, I think what's very important is innovation and modernization only work when there's no lock-in. And from an Oracle point of view, we've always been following standards. And our motto has always been, we provide really great products and services that are based on open standards, so customers have choice. And if you wouldn't like it, you can always go somewhere else and you're not locked in. But what we've seen is when you provide good services, people stay anyway. And so if you go in and build your technology stack, you do your modernization on something that's very unique to one environment, then your innovation might be stuck with what that vendor or that platform offers you. And so you don't have that much choice. And what we believe is have great choice, and that allows you to do much better innovation. And so that starts with us. We have a really great cloud. We have lots of good services. We have really great on-premises products and services. We bring the cloud to you on-prem, so you're not really locked in anywhere. And that allows people to do really good innovation, no matter where you are, local or remote. Thanks for listening.